Welcome to This Explainer. We're going to start right at the climax of what honestly might be the most incredible true crime story in modern history. Just picture this. You're tens of thousands of feet in the air. The rear door of a commercial Boeing 727 airliner is forced open into a freezing pitch-black storm. A man is standing right on the precipice. He's dressed in a crisp business suit, he's wearing a parachute, and he's got a briefcase containing $200,000 in cash strapped firmly to his chest. He looks out into the howling wind and the endless dark of the Pacific Northwest wilderness. And then, he just jumps. It is literally the ultimate curiosity gap, right? How does a guy just vanish into thin air from a commercial flight? It sounds exactly like a script for a Hollywood thriller, but this is the very real, very chilling true crime mystery of the man the world came to know as D.B. Cooper. To understand how he vanished without a trace, and to unpack the absolutely wild evidence left behind, we have to rewind the clock to see exactly how this unbelievable night began.
All right, Section 1, boarding Flight 305.
So it was November 24th, 1971, a completely routine, short-hop flight out of Portland, Oregon, heading up to Seattle, Washington. Now, to truly grasp this story, you really have to put yourself in the mindset of the era. Airport security back then, it was virtually non-existent compared to today. I mean, there were no metal detectors, no ID checks. A man carrying a black Achai case just walked right up to the counter, bought a one-way ticket in cash under the name Dan Cooper, and simply walked onto the plane. He took his seat, ordered a bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, and waited for takeoff. He was utterly unassuming. But, as we know, that calm exterior was a mask. We're about to see the terrifying moment when this completely mundane flight shifted from a routine trip to a high-stakes hijacking.
Section 2, the $200,000 demand.
Okay, so shortly after takeoff, Cooper casually hands a young flight attendant a note. When she finally opens it, she realizes the quiet man in the suit is claiming he has a bomb in his briefcase. And his demands? They were incredibly precise. He wanted $200,000 in $20 bills. He wanted a fuel truck on standby the second they landed in Seattle. And he wanted 4 parachutes. Not 1, not 2, but 4. Now think about that for a second. Why would a lone hijacker demand 4 parachutes? Well, we'll see how that brilliant psychological tactic played out in just a moment. But first, we really need to pause and emphasize the sheer scale of the ransom he was demanding. $200,000. In 1971, that was a staggering, totally life-changing sum of money. To put that into perspective, in today's money, you're looking at over $1.5 million. He wasn't just committing a crime of opportunity here, he was aiming for a massive, meticulously planned payday. The authorities now knew exactly what they were dealing with, and the logistics of the flight had to completely change.
Moving to Section 3, the plane's strange journey.
The sequence of events that followed was intensely bizarre. After taking off from Portland, Flight 305 just circled the Seattle area for hours while the FBI frantically scrambled to assemble the ransom money and get those parachutes. They finally land in Seattle, where Cooper executes this incredibly tense, highly coordinated swap. He actually lets the 36 passengers deplane in exchange for the cash and the gear. The plane gets refueled, and then, get this, dictating the exact speed, the flap angle, and the altitude to the pilots, Cooper orders them to take off again, pointing the nose of a plane south toward Mexico. The stage was set. And we've reached the terrifying climax of our explainer, a mid-air escape literally unlike anything in aviation history.
Section 4, a leap into darkness.
Now, to understand the sheer madness of this jump, just look at the extreme data here. Altitude, 10,000 feet. The cabin was unpressurized, which means the air up there is devastatingly thin and absolutely freezing. Speed, 170 knots. That is wind hitting you at nearly 200 miles per hour. The temperature outside was well below freezing. And the visibility? Pitch black. Right in the middle of a heavy, freezing rainstorm over dense, rugged forests. This wasn't some standard weekend skydive. This was a plunge into an absolute nightmare scenario. Somewhere over southwestern Washington, he lowered the aft stairs of the plane and just stepped off.
Up in the cockpit, the pilots actually felt a sudden shift to the air pressure and the plane's handling. They just kept flying and eventually landed safely down in Reno, Nevada. Heavily armed authorities immediately swarmed the aircraft, but when they breached the doors and searched the cabin, they found absolutely nothing. The cabin was completely empty. Only his clip-on tie and a few cigarette butts were left behind. The hijacker was gone. That stunning realization shifted the entire focus from the crime itself to the intense, sprawling FBI investigation that immediately kicked off.
Section 5.
The massive FBI manhunt.
So the FBI launches one of the most exhaustive manhunts in American history. I mean, they searched forests, they tracked flight paths, they interviewed thousands of people. But years just ticked by with absolutely zero physical evidence turning up. Until 1980, almost a decade later, a young boy vacationing with his family along the Columbian River actually unearths 3 bundles of decaying, rotting $20 bills buried right there in the sand. The FBI matched the serial numbers. It was undeniably part of Cooper's ransom. But it was only a tiny fraction of the money. The rest of that 200 grand, it has literally never been seen again. This discovery obviously just fueled the fire, and now we're going to transition into the speculative world, strictly separating the confirmed evidence we just covered from the wild theories that emerged over the decades.
Section 6, Suspects and Enduring Theories.
So the crucial point when evaluating suspects is that you have to impartially weigh the known traits against the profiles. We know for sure Cooper was calm under pressure, a heavy smoker, likely in his mid-40s, and possessed very specific tactical aviation knowledge. Remember his demand for 4 parachutes earlier? Well, he did that so the FBI would assume he was taking hostages with him when he jumped. That prevented them from giving him sabotaged or dummy gear. It is, honestly, a masterclass in psychological warfare. Over the years, investigators looked at ex-military paratroopers, seasoned criminals, even people who gave full confessions on their deathbeds. Yet, when investigators weighed the known facts against these prime suspects, the DNA, the timelines, or the physical descriptions never perfectly aligned. Not once.
Which brings us to the defining reality of this entire saga. Unsolved. A case lacking a definitive resolution or identified perpetrator. Because despite a massive FBI file, despite civilian sleuths dedicating their entire lives to the case, and despite the discovery of that rotting cache, the mystery of Flight 305's hijacker remains the officially unsolved case of air piracy in commercial aviation history. The only one.
Which leaves us right where we started, looking out into that pitch-black storm. Think about the incredible odds we've discussed today. The meticulously planned demands, the terrifying jump conditions, the scattered money found years later. I want you to look at these facts and ask yourself, did D.B. Cooper actually pull off the perfect crime, vanishing into the woods to live out his days in wealth and secrecy? Or did that freezing darkness, the roaring wind, and the unforgiving wilderness claim him the very second he stepped off that plane? The evidence is all there, so what do you think happened?